Hey everyone, Ryan Young, KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu. I hope you're doing well. So I'm about to head out to my Austin, Texas studio from here in Dallas, Fort Worth. And I get a video that pops up on my YouTube news feed. And I also get a message from one of our students here in the Dallas, Fort Worth campus telling me to take a look at it. And that kind of prompted me to kind of do this video. And it's about an MMA fighter or instructor in El Paso, Texas, named Jose Campuzano, and he's, I think the video is he's fighting for his life. He's gotten beaten outside of a club. So I wanted to touch on this subject about the, getting into these street fights and all that kind of stuff. But first, what is KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu? We are the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu studio, the Rickson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu studio that was formed by Master David Kama. And he is one of the Dirty Dozen in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. For those of you who are new to Jiu-Jitsu, the Dirty Dozen are the first 12 members of the Jiu-Jitsu community who are not Brazilians to earn a black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And Dave Kama earned his from Grandmaster Rickson Gracie. And we have 3 studios, one in Southern California in Irvine, one in Dallas-Fort Worth in Flower Mound, and one in Austin, Texas. So come visit us when you're in the area and come drop in and check out a class. Also, you can visit us at KAATAROJujitsuOnline.com for our online material. So if you want to see our curriculum, you want to see the videos that go with it, Master Dave's dropped, I want to say over 200 videos on Jiu-Jitsu concepts as well as techniques on Rickson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. We also have a section on there called our class notes, which is not part of the curriculum, but it's stuff that is kind of a need to know kind of thing. Those of you who have seen our video need to know, what are the need to know concepts. Our class notes section actually is footage from our actual classes where we're actually teaching other need to know concepts that are not in the curriculum. Anyway, let's get back to the subject at hand, and Jose Campuzano, who is an MMA instructor. Not sure if he owns a school, MMA instructor out in El Paso, Texas, and he is fighting for his life right now in a hospital. And from what I understand from the news reports, he's no longer unconscious, and he has kind of come to and has been able to recognize a relative.
Local jiu-jitsu instructor and MMA coach Jose Campuzano fighting for his life after getting beaten by a group of people outside of EPTX bar in East El Paso early Monday morning during closing time.
Jose, just being the person he is, he tried to jump in to help, and to stop this group of people who were attacking and rendering unconscious these other 2 victims, that were also attacked that night. And he just jumped in to help. That's who Jose is. And unfortunately, he got attacked and bombarded by this group of people.
The family says Jose was beaten until he was unconscious and was taken to Del Sol Medical Center Monday morning, where he's now in critical but stable condition.
I had just gotten a note from Grandmaster Rickson Gracie. He put it on his website about BJJ helping you to decide which doors to open. So what he had actually talked about was when you're in a situation, you need to kind of understand where you are so you can know where to go. For instance, if you're in a bad situation, you have to evaluate, how you can avoid the situation and get out. On the other hand, if you cannot get out, you need to be able to evaluate how you can still get out, right? If you can't avoid a situation. So I thought that actually came at a right time, because here we are with this gentleman out in El Paso who is now fighting for his life. All right, so I kind of got, it's funny how, in the jiu-jitsu community or MMA community, jiu-jitsu it's different. It was one way, then it became another way, and now it's seemingly becoming another way altogether. So how it was when I started, we were taught, always try to avoid a fight, but really in reality, when we took jiu-jitsu, it was because we wanted to fight, right? Kind of the incorrect way to go about it, but that's really how it was. And then maybe, let's say, in the late 90s to maybe 2010, it was about avoiding fights, although you still had people who took jiu-jitsu because they wanted to learn how to fight. But really, it's about avoiding fights, and that's what we teach as well at KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu. I always teach my students, how to avoid fights. Same with Master Dave. It's always, I don't want to fight, and you're always trying to find a way out of a fight. So even when it comes to, the beginner close the distance clinch series, we call it the 1, 2, 3, where, you're managing your distance potential opponent approaches you, you back up. Step one is, does this guy want to fight? And then he comes closer, you back up. Step two, I think he wants to fight, so that if he comes a third time, we're going to fight. So, it's a, step back, does he want to fight? Step back, it looks like he wants to fight, and on three, we clinch, right? So you're always looking for the way out. You're not looking for a fight. So, and a lot of it has to do with avoiding situations. So this gentleman got into a fight, and just kind of going based on what the newscaster said and what the family member was talking about, how, first of all, he was at a club late, I guess they said Monday morning, which means Sunday night, I guess. And, in my experience, clubs generally are a bad place to be if you're looking to avoid trouble. If you're looking to get into trouble, no better place to be. So that's number one. How do I personally avoid confrontations? Well, first of all, I avoid places that would possibly put me in a situation, right? I like to have fun with friends. So instead what we'll do is maybe we'll just gather at a restaurant which has a bar facility, and we'll just have dinner and drinks, or we'll go later for drinks. But as far as a club where you have a lot of young people there, young people meaning under age 30, right? That's the group that tends to have a lot of testosterone going through their veins, and prefrontal cortex not fully developed yet, so they engage in risky behavior. And like a fight is never really an advisable thing. But when you're at that point where hormone levels are high, prefrontal cortex in your brain not fully developed, so that means your judgment isn't always good, right? And then you're now you're a fighter. You've trained to fight, and then you add an alcohol to it. That's a recipe for a lot of trouble. So, first thing I would do is I just avoid the situation, right? Not even be there. But let's say, you're training with your professor or whatever, and professor wants to go out and grab something to drink. Hey, let's go to a certain place and let's go hang out. There's going to be a bunch of guys from the studio and all that. So you're like, okay, yeah, I can go. So you go and you have a great time, right? And I think there's like an Instagram photo of him, at that place, having a great time, probably just before that. Now, you're not looking for trouble, you just want to have a great time, so you do. As does everybody else who's there, and then, but, at a club, that late at night. So he steps out of the club and he sees these guys fighting with two people, and these two people are getting their ass kicked. What do you do, right? So I guess the normal male thing to do would be to jump in, right? And I get that. Now, would I jump in? Probably not. Given my age, my days of that are done. But even when I was of age to fight, would I fight? No. Not my thing, right? And another, so first step was to avoid the situation, but by not being at the place. But he did go to the situation. Okay, so we got past that one. Now there's a fight outside. Can he avoid the situation? Absolutely. Is it his fight? Well, if he doesn't know the people, then it's not his fight. You call the police, right? You try to talk them down, and if you can't talk them down, then you just hightail it out of there, right? You don't involve yourself unless you have numbers. But if you do have numbers, then realize that it could be a major situation. I mean, think of gangs, right? They rove in numbers. And apparently, I don't know if there was a gang involved, but two guys were getting their asses kicked by more than two guys, right? So, this gentleman felt the need to jump in because that's what it sounded like, how, the family member said, oh, he just likes to help people, help his community. He saw two guys getting beat up, so he decided to go in there and help. What does go in there and help mean? Does that mean, start fighting? I hope it didn't mean that, because if it did, he put himself into, a really bad situation by jumping in on the fight and engaging in a fight that wasn't his. especially since he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. By engaging in it, he put himself, and if he has a family, he put his family at risk as well by jumping into a fight and engaging. You know, just because you're trained to fight doesn't mean you fight. I remember getting on a YouTube video I did a while back, a person saying, me saying, you want to avoid the fight. I don't want to fight, and he's saying, what is this bullshit, right? Teaching not to fight, that's not self-defense. Well, it is, it's self-defense, it's also self-preservation. And when you jump in a fight, you're basically violating all these tenets of self-defense and self-preservation. And realize that by you preserving yourself, you're also preserving those who depend on you. See, when I look at the pictures of this guy, he didn't look like a young guy. He looked like an older guy. I'd say 30s or 40s. And that's, you've got to think a little longer term than that. Now, this isn't an indictment on him. I'm just saying that for you guys, our listeners and viewers, and my students, avoid these types of situations as all you can, right? So what's that saying? 99% of all fights are 100% avoidable. I don't think this particular instance falls into that 1% that's unavoidable. So I pray to God that this gentleman ends up recovering fully, 100%. But for everybody else out there, I pray that you really consider self-defense, and in fact self-defense jiu-jitsu, a place like KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu, so that you understand the ramifications of what's going on if you don't know already, right? And also realizing that fighting is really not what you want to do. You want to avoid a fight at all costs. And you avoiding a fight or walking away does not make you a chicken. It preserves you and those that love you. Anyway, that's all I got. Comment below. Take care. Happy training. Bye now.